Good morning, America. Who's ready for World War III? Let's see here.
Can now track when you're home, when you're asleep, and when you leave for work. A free tool went public on GitHub that turns WhatsApp and Signal into a tracking device. Here's how it works. The attacker sends invisible reactions to messages that don't exist. Someone with just your phone can now track when you're home, when you're asleep, and when you leave for work. A free tool went public on GitHub that turns WhatsApp and Signal into a tracking device. Here's how it works. The attacker sends invisible reactions to messages that don't exist. Your phone responds automatically. There's no notification, pop-up, nothing's visible. There is one sign: your battery will start draining 15 to 18% an hour while it's idle. By measuring how fast your phone responds, they can tell if your screen is on, if you're on Wi-Fi or mobile data, and if you're moving. Over time, they can build a profile, like when you're home, when you're asleep, when you're out. The researchers reported this to Meta 14 months ago and heard back. Signal never responded at all, as if it's still exploitable, and there's almost nothing you can do about it. Someone with just your phone number can now track when you're home, when you're asleep, and when you leave for work. A free tool went public on GitHub that turns WhatsApp and Signal into a tracking device. Here's how it works.
I mean, you could not have WhatsApp or GitHub or Signal. Maybe that makes too much sense. We don't live in a democracy. We live in a republic. With some democratic processes. Okay. wild. Wild world. Swinging. Swinging for the fences. And he got a home run.
Yeah. Improved the sight in an eye which was blind for 75 years, which I find to be unbelievable. But when I was 5, 6 years old, it became clear to me, and my parents had noticed a lot earlier, that one of my eyes was non-functional. So this went on for some time. I visited specialists, and eventually when I was 10 years old, they operated on my eye to remove cataracts. And in those days, they just
4.5-mile corridor will all be under construction. Crews will start the segment between Cook Road to the Orange Lake County line in April. Then come June, work starts for the final segment from Cook Road to US 27. This stretch will feature in-pavement electric vehicle charging.
It's a pilot project that we have that will have a fleet of equipped vehicles that will actually, when it's built, be able to charge on the move while they're driving over that section of the 516. It's going to be a complete game changer.
But there's still ways to go before then. All construction is expected to be complete by 2029. Come the new year, the 4.5-mile corridor will all be under construction. Crews will start the segment between Cook Road to the Orange Lake County line in April. Then June, work starts for the final segment from Cook Road to US 27. This stretch are in-pavement electric vehicle charging.
It's a pilot project that we have that will have a fleet of equipped vehicles that will actually, when it's built, be able to charge on the move while they're driving over that section of I-16. It's going to be a complete game changer.
who's going to win? It's going to be Gavin. This next election cycle, who's going to win? It's going to be Gavin Newsom against J.D. Vance, because J.D. Vance is subhuman and Gavin Newsom mugs.
J.D. Vance is subhuman?
Yeah.
What makes you say that?
He's got a very short total facial width to height ratio. He's obese, very recessed side profile, whereas Newsom is like 6'3" Chad.
So JD's very tall. JD's got to be
well, still,
6'2",
I mean,
6'3".
Gavin Newsom obviously mugs him to death.
So you're a Newsom head. You prefer Newsom to the vice president.
I'm just telling you who's going to win.
Do you prefer him though?
Honestly, it's hard to say, but Newsom being that much more of a mogger, and like having a president who's like fat and especially that young.
You think I don't think he's fat.
I would say
he's a big. Sure.
It's just like it's just embarrassing. Like, how are you fat and you expect to like lead a country? You can't even be in shape, you know?
So let's say you got it's 2028.
I'm voting for Gavin Newsom.
You're voting for Gavin Newsom.
You can't be that subhuman.
So hold on. You got all right. Well, this actually is of a thread with the whole conversation, because you look at these two candidates. You have Gavin Newsom, worst governor in the country. I think we would all agree, destroyed his state, let its main city burn to the ground because of his incompetence, is a personal, complete derelict, liar, degenerate. But he is good looking. I'll grant you that he's good looking. Yep. And kind of looks like Patrick Bateman, American Psycho. And then you have this vice president to President Trump, the transformative right-wing president of our lifetimes, who, do you support Trump or no?
Yeah.
Okay. So you got this vice president handpicked by Trump, who is extremely intelligent, very right-wing. I think he's a pretty good-looking guy. I don't know. Maybe I guess you disagree. But he's all these things, checks all these boxes, would have all these great policies. And regardless, you're going to pick the pro-mass migrant, pro-trans, pro-murder the babies, pro-burn the cities to the ground, pro-BLM Democrat, because he's skinnier than the conservative vice president.
100 times over. J.D. Vance, would he be a better candidate and probably closer to me in policy than Gavin Newsom? Yes, but he's just not going to be good enough to be deserving. I think the right has kind of let down those for the longest time. So I think I don't really think that right-wingers should just give support to these jesters who continue to underdeliver on their promises. Just let the Democrats win. That's kind of what I'm talking about in terms of just like why I don't support Vance as a voter. But
so you're saying no, they shouldn't vote for any Republican. The right-wingers should not vote for the Republican.
Not until the right actually wants to do the things that they're promising.
So is there a candidate you would prefer? I assume you don't actually want to vote for Newsom. Maybe you do. Maybe you are a Democrat. No. Okay. So then who's a right-winger you want to vote for?
Not a Zionist?
Or maybe there isn't one.
No, yeah, there really isn't one. It's
kind of doomer, isn't it? So now you're saying if you're a real hardcore Giga Chad right-winger, you should let the Democrats rape your country.
Well, yeah, you kind of have to. Like, that's the accelerationist mentality, because, like, look, what is the right going to do other than just, like, a small win here and, like, maybe you overturn Roe v. Wade on, like, a federal level, but abortion is still allowed, like, state. So it's like it really doesn't do anything. It's like if these people are just going to, like...
Convert 2 million people, maybe...
Okay, but there's still 28 million more, right? So until these people actually want to make changes that matter, right?
I think 2 million people matters. I think...
Does it in a country of how many people? Like, what are we?
330.
Exactly. So it's like this is we're not really making any progress here. So for the RNC to just demand voters to continue to show up for what? Really, it's just that's the cope, right? That's what I'm simply advocating for until like the policies change and like the rhetoric is a little better.
How would the policies change? This is what I'm confused about. Is had a Democrat won, just use this past year. Had a Democrat won, just use this past year. Had a Democrat won, we would get, just judging by Biden's policies, it was Biden's vice president who was running, you would add 3 million illegal aliens to the country.
Mm-hmm.
Because Trump won, not only do you not add 3 million, you lose 2 million. So now you have a net change of 5 million potential foreigners who would be in the United States over the course of 1 year. And you're saying, yeah, it's not good enough. Sorry, bro.
It's not. It really is not good enough.
So what are you doing?
What am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm realizing that society's going one direction, and I'm trying to improve myself as much as possible so that I could succeed financially, so that I can improve my status and improve my quality of life.
But
Fair.
what's very interesting about it is by saying, look, not only am I apathetic, I want the Democrats to win because they're going to be bad,
Yes.
because they're going to screw up the country,
Yes.
and then we'll have a revolution, it'll be good again.
Right.
What's interesting about that to me is it reflects something quite real and I think quite understandable, which is the alienation, especially among young men, especially among young right-wing men, from the country that at a very high levels in popular media and government has told that group of people that they suck for like 30 years. That I totally resonate with. So how widespread do you think that alienation is?
I would say that the reason that I have the success I do is because it's almost in every kid my age who in the same demographic, is people are tired of, being banned on social media. People are tired of
Being called toxic.
right, the government not advocating for them whatsoever. So I would say that it's probably more common than not.
Supposed to read the scripture directly, and William Tyndale was executed in 1536 for translating the Bible English. See, ordinary people weren't supposed to read the scripture directly, and Tyndale had translated the Bible from Hebrew and Greek, not from Latin. He translated the language into plain English so that common people could understand, and then he secretly printed those copies and smuggled them into England. This terrified both the Catholic Church and the English political elites. So he was arrested, tried for heresy, strangled, and burned at the stake. And his final words, "Lord, opened the King of England's eyes," and that king was Henry VIII. After Tyndale's execution, England goes through a massive political shift. Henry VIII breaks from the Catholic Church and declares himself the head of the Church of England. Suddenly, the English Bible becomes useful to the state, so the Crown authorizes official English Bibles. The Great Bible, which was the first official state Bible, the Bishop's Bible that was designed to suppress Protestant radicalism, and the King James Version, a royal propaganda masterpiece. These Bibles absorbed Tyndale's wording and corrected his theology to restore hierarchy. The King James Bible was produced by a commission appointed by King James I. It came with rules forbidding footnotes that challenged royal authority and adjusted wording in places to support monarchy, social hierarchy, and state obedience. So this Bible was politically curated. See, earlier Bibles, like the Geneva that was used by pilgrims, included footnotes that openly stated things. Kings can become tyrants. People have a duty to resist unjust rulers, and God does not endorse absolute monarchy. The Tyndale Bibles, the original English translation of the Bible, were publicly burned. Ownership was punishable as heresy. Smuggling networks dismantled. Printers arrested, and possession could result in execution. After Tyndale's death, the government reused his work anyway, but erased his name and changed his theological framework. One of the examples of this is the word metanoia. The original English translation was repentance, interchange. The state translation was penance, a church-controlled act, or the word ecclesia, which meant congregation, later changed by the state to church. Congregation are people. A church is an institution. This single word moves authority from the people to the hierarchy. Or the word presbyteros, meaning elder, later changed by the state to bishop. Ordinary people understanding the true translation of these would strip institutional power from the church and give it back to the people. The Geneva Bible was the Bible of the Puritans, the early American colonists, and revolutionary thinkers. It taught God is greater than king, law is greater than ruler, and tyranny is a rebellion against God. King James hated it, so once his version was released, the Geneva Bible was pushed out of churches, printing permissions were restricted, and within a generation it was completely dissolved from worship. By the 1640s, the King James Version was the only authorized Bible in a textbook example of information monopoly. So the first English Bible translator was executed by the state because his translation stripped power from hierarchy. The state later reused his work, removed its radical theology, and inserted pro-obedience framing. And the result was the King James Version, which became one of the most powerful tools of propaganda in Western history.
Beautifully said.
So what do you think about the use of artificial intelligence or lavender by the IDF in identifying Hamas targets?
Look, I'm not, without going into all the I'm not on top of all the details of what's going on in Israel because my bias is to defer to Israel. It's not for us to second guess everything, and I believe that broadly the IDF gets to decide what it wants to do, and that they're broadly in the right, and that's sort of the perspective I come back to.
So what do you think?
During AmFest, or I guess it was after AmFest, and they asked the audience, what they considered to be the greatest threat to America. And they did put radical Islam at #1. I'm wondering where you think those sentiments are coming from. I mean, I heard you say before that this is an op, and that we all know which foreign government it's actually coming from. Which government is it, and can you explain how that option works? How is it, kind of lured into those?
From the Israeli government and its defenders and informal employees in the United States, of course. And I guess I would just say if it's actually, I don't know how people respond to the poll. I don't know who answered it, but, I believe in measuring reality a little more empirically. And, I don't know anyone in the United States in the last 24 years who's been killed by radical Islam. I know a lot of people who have killed themselves, a lot. I know people who've died of drug ODs, more than a few. I know people can't get jobs. None of the boys in my daughter's classes can get jobs. None of those white boys can get jobs. They're being destroyed, by Adderall and video games and porn. Like, I see millions of Americans being destroyed, and none of it is at the hands of radical Islam. Is radical Islam a danger than OnlyFans? It's not even close. Turning some huge percentage of American women into prostitutes. That's not radical Islam doing that, actually. So anyone who believes that lie, I for, but it doesn't reflect the lived reality of anyone I've ever met in the United States. And I observe this for a living. It doesn't mean I'm right, but it means I'm not a casual observer. I'm a close observer because that's my job. And I just think that's insane. And it would be yet another triumph of propaganda and thief for reality. So you tell people, this is the whole game. This is how, the United States has somehow tied itself to the anchor of Gaza. Like, why responsible for Bibi's mass murder? Well, we are now, partly because so many Americans have been told over and over and over, like, your destiny is with Israel. Israel's our most important ally. There is no sense in which Israel is an important ally. It's not even an ally. It's a liability. But people have been told that again and again and again, or I'm an anti-Semite. By the way, I got the award of apparently anti-Semite of the year 2 days after I gave a speech saying anti-Semitism was immoral. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the people creating the propaganda and disseminating it have zero interest in the reality of any question. Of course, propagandists never care what the truth is. They're merely convinced, probably some evidence, that if you repeat a lie often enough, people will believe it. I don't know what to do about that. That's always been true. I don't lose a lot of sleep over it. But if you've convinced a bunch of kids who literally can't get jobs and buy houses or find wives or husbands, whose parents are divorced, who are, think on OnlyFans or playing video games all day, if you've convinced people Islam is their number one problem, you are the most effective propagandist in history. I mean, that's an unbelievable feat. I haven't seen the poll. I'm taking your word for it. Again, I don't know how many people responded to it.
Yeah.
But that is deranged. And by the way, if you think radical Islam is the threat that you claim it is, I'm hardly endorsing it. I'm opposed to it. I'm against radical anything. I'm the most temperamentally moderate person. I'm a fucking 56-year-old wasp, dude. I'm moderate, okay?
Yeah.
But I just don't like lying. But if you sincerely believe radical Islam is the greatest threat, then why aren't they asking the government? Why isn't Ben Shapiro asking the government to fully declassify the 9/11 files? I wonder why that is. Any sense of why that might be? Seriously, if you really think radical Islam is that great a threat, tell me why you're hiding basic facts about 9/11. And the answer is, of course, it's not what they told us it was.
As you hear behind us, there are explosions going off in the streets of Washington, D.C., emanating from the rooftop of the FBI headquarters down on Pennsylvania Avenue. And it's very loud. And they are happening every 10 to 20 seconds. We don't know what they are. And we're gonna try to figure it out, I guess. But yeah, loud explosions behind us here, or in front of us here, up on the corner of the FBI headquarters where these explosions are going off, and it is loud. So you guys can hear it overhead. Loud booms. Will J. Luther. And nobody on the street seems to be freaking out. So you can see the plumes of smoke every time these explosions go off. Yeah, we heard it first. Apparently we're the only people hearing this. Let's see the plumes of smoke going off. About 9 seconds in between. Sarah, hi Sarah. Sarah hears it. Yeah, guys, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You know, what the sound is, what the is. We just don't know what's causing it. You know, we've been hypothesizing on our stream just for the last hour or so about what might be causing this. Is this something with the HVAC system? Is it, you know, some kind of intentional operation to scare away birds or something? Or is it, you know, some kind of weird testing exercise with cannons or something? I don't know. Schwarzenegger. Blue Star. Hi, Blue Star.
Strange.
Yeah, this is very, I mean, what's weird about this is like we are in the middle of downtown DC. And this, you know, what time is it? 2:30 in the morning. So if this were some kind of planned operation, this would seem to be very, very, very odd and unusual for this to be happening at this time of night. Certainly probably in violation of various local noise ordinances.
How strange.
Land speculation.
October 12th, 2022. 2:30 in the morning. Weird. They keep closing the Mackinac Bridge. It's weird.
all over the world. And happy holidays to the... Well, good afternoon, and a very, very happy Christmas to all of our friends all over the world. And happy holidays to those of you who don't perhaps celebrate Christmas, but you celebrate these holidays that are so important in your own way. Now, in the next 12 months, in the coming year, we are going to all be a witness to extraordinary changes. Some of those changes will be miraculous. Some of those changes will be spectacular. And some of those changes will involve things that you have never in your life seen before or have imagined that are possible. Whatever occurs and whatever changes we will experience, let us remember the friendship that is fundamental between all living souls, and let us appreciate the friendships that you, of course, out there as our friends have extended to us, and we, as your friends, extend to you at this time. From our family to yours, may we wish you a very, very happy Christmas, and we wish you the most extraordinary New Year. I hope you enjoy it.
Get ready for an interesting year.
That's just what the bail schedule is for that charge.
I don't understand.
Man's backyard BBQ leads to a felony arson.
The bail is $100,000.
Oh, $100,000. Why so much?
That's just what the bail schedule is for that charge.
$100,000? I don't understand this.
Backyard BBQ leads to a felony arson charge and a $100,000 bail. This is the blunt reality of a system that prices freedom before trial. He explains he has a job, responsibilities, a home, all proof he's no flight risk. The system ignores it. His circumstances don't matter. Only the charge code does. The bail amount is set by a schedule, not by a person. So he faces a brutal choice. Find a small fortune to stay free and employed, or sit in jail and watch his life collapse, all while legally presumed innocent. This exposes the core failure of cash bail. It doesn't measure risk, it measures wealth. The same price tag is slapped on everyone, ignoring who can pay and who will be crushed by it. Justice becomes a transaction. So we have to ask, does this system protect public safety, or does it simply punish poverty? Is this what innocent until proven guilty looks like?
Hey everybody, I wanted to talk with you about XRP and the it did yesterday. It's already back on its way up. And if you either sold it all or sold a bunch in a panic sale, that was a mistake. It's okay, you'll learn from your mistakes. If I hadn't learned by selling all of my Bitcoin one day in a panic, it would now be worth $1.1 million, closer to $2 million actually, a few $1,000s into it. So don't panic, sell. I was watching a guru last week apologizing on the line. He called himself a guru for XRP. He was apologizing because he had been promoting XRP, and then without telling all of his followers, he listened to two friends who told him he ought to sell, and so he sold. And he was telling everybody to buy it and hold. He sold it, and he was all apologetic about that. And then it shot up. Well, then since then, so he was apologizing because he'd lost all this money because it shot up. Now here we are a few days later, and it shot back down. If you're going to own XRP, you have to expect it's going to go up and down and up and down. Warren Buffett said the time to hold a stock, and I would add a crypto, is get the right stock or the right crypto and hold it forever. So buy and hold XRP. That's my advice.
Half your tools were like filthy. I had to throw them out. So I got you all new ones. Open the other.
What? You had to throw them out?
Open the other one.
Haley.
What? Aren't you
I
excited?
didn't need tools, baby.
They're clean.
You didn't throw out my tools.
Yeah, I did.
The Snap-on and the Craftsman, the whole toolbox is full of. You threw those out. And bought me Walmart. Haley, you're joking.
What? I told you what I did. I couldn't find those one thingies though. I tried.
Are you serious?
Yes, I'm dead serious. I couldn't find any more of those either, but I threw out the dirty ones.
Gee, thanks, babe.
I thought you'd be surprised.
I am.
I'm sorry.
No, you did great. Thanks. I needed them. Apparently. Look at it. I needed them. I don't have any. These were full.
Happen in 2026. Exact alignment will happen in 2026 at Easter.
What will happen?
The star will, the alignment she told me about, that the star of Regulus would be on the horizon in front of the Sphinx. At that moment, there'd be a new knowledge. Well, I had no idea if this was even possible, but these run it through the machines and it comes out that star is going to come up on the horizon in Easter of 2026. And from that point forward, they started remote viewing the state. Government did. And now you hear it all over TV. 2026, that's the big date. 2027, that year, something's going to happen. Armageddon, you hear it all over. You hear it on TV. If you study, I've heard even, well, I won't say names, but
please do.
Well, Lou Elizondo, Lou's mentioned that date. A lot of people have.
Easter 2026.
Well, the year 2026. I gave him the specific time. And it was with Robert Grant that I told him about this alignment and all. And then he's like, oh my God. He's been looking for this little ruby you have to find and place it between the paws of the Sphinx to make this event that he knows is going to happen in 2026. I said, Robert, it's not a ruby, it's the star of Regulus. He looks like, he's like, oh my God, it's the King star. So what's going to happen, I don't know. But I think it's possible that's the return of
Christ.
Yeah. Or the lady and the whole heavenly host living with us, Jesus. That's the first time I've ever said that in my life. publicly. You're the first.
$1.26 million. What was that money spent?
Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going. What do you guys think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
I don't think anybody is enabling fraud to happen.
Hold Governor Walz accountable for this.
What was this money spent on? $1.26 million. What was that money spent on? There aren't any kids.
Answer the question. Are there children? There's no children inside this building.
Potentially the largest fraud scandal in U.S. history is taking place in Minnesota, as literally billions of dollars have been funneled through Somali-ran fraudulent businesses. So much fraud, it could actually almost replace the entire GDP of Somalia. These fraudsters have worked hand in hand with the Minnesota government as they enabled billions of dollars to be given to fraudulent businesses underneath welfare purposes. Some of this money eventually landed in the hands of terrorist groups in Somalia like the Al-Shabaab, and others enriched themselves all at the US taxpayers' expense. And in this video we will break down all of the fraud from start to finish, from going to the fraudulent businesses and confronting the people who are making millions of dollars from the government. And we will also be confronting the incompetent government leaders who let this fraud happen. And to make this happen, I met up with a man who's been doing his own investigation for years now, as he has seen the fraud firsthand. His name is David. Let's get into this and be prepared to be shocked. How deep is this fraud here inside of Minnesota?
It is far worse than anybody can imagine. You heard it's 7 to 10 billion and maybe more, and now numbers have been revised and put out there publicly that they think it's more like 8 billion. How I got involved is that where my office is here in Minneapolis, I'm sort of in the heart of all of this fraud, and I would see these child care centers. Well, there aren't any kids there. It's the middle of the day, and all I see are a couple of guys standing out front smoking. Then I'd go by another daycare and I'd see the same thing. I said, well, where do these play? And so I started to go online and look, and I said, this place is licensed for 80 children. They had 0 children. Every time I went by there, they never had a single child there. Then I started to see all these transportation companies going around, and it was always a Somali driver. And I said, well, that's great. They're out there transportation contributing, but they never had a passenger, never, ever once. And I said, well, what is all this transportation? What are they doing? So then I found out that in Minnesota, they have something called non-emergency medical transportation. So this is going to the dentist office, therapy, whatever it might be. And I said, what these are there? And the research came back that there are 1,020 of them, and more than 800 of them are Somali-owned. Nobody from the state of Minnesota ever cross-checks to see if any rides were ever actually provided. All they did was write the check.
So right here we have all this paperwork. And how are you getting all this information about the fraud?
A lot of it is through my own research, and then I have some contacts at the Capitol going back many, many years. And so the data that I'm getting is 100% accurate, coming directly from research done by people at the state Capitol.
All this paperwork right here, what are we looking at?
The areas of fraud that I have numbers for are mostly related to childcare. This is massive fraud that is beyond anyone's imagination, the scope. And for example, there's a child care not far from here in Minneapolis. There's two child cares listed at the same address, and together they're licensed supposedly for 120 children. I have never seen a single child there ever, and I've been by that place at least 100 times.
These Somalians, these groups are setting up these daycares, these child care centers, getting from the government, but there's no kids.
No kids. Never had any of them. They're all fraught with violations, and even though they have these violations, they're still in operation and they're still getting money. And it's millions of dollars for every one of them every year.
Just to warn you, I may get loud.
Reaching out, touching me, touching you.
I just got chills. Wow. Every thank you I got belongs to you, Dom. Song sung blue, rated P.
Descendants of the ancient Vikings who crossed the Atlantic 500 years. Swedes, Norwegians, Danes. Descendants of the ancient Vikings who crossed the Atlantic 500 years before Columbus discovered America. People who look much alike, speak similar languages, who live in Scandinavia.
Contracting DEI fraud, and I wore that ridiculous wig. I think the big story of the year for us was exposing the government subcontracting DEI fraud, and I wore that ridiculous wig, and I met with these people that were getting hundreds of millions of dollars from the Treasury and SBA, and they told me that none of the money goes to minorities. It just goes to line their pockets. So even if you support these DEI, even if you think, oh, it should go to the Native Americans, it doesn't go to the Native Americans. We went to California and interviewed the Native Americans, and they want all these people to go to jail.
There's only so much we can do as journalists.
Yes.
We can expose it all day long, but if nothing gets done, what are we doing?
It actually might undermine the credibility of your journalism if nothing happens. So I think it's important for us to try to hold the people to account that hold them accountable. My vision for 2026 is we need arrests. We need people to go to prison if they break. By the way, I would go to prison if I did this. So the year in review, next year, our work will lead to arrests. And if it doesn't lead to arrests, I'm going to investigate the prosecutors themselves.
We saw something very interesting.
July 11th of that year, there was another important first. The price of oil hit $147 a barrel, the highest price the world has ever seen.
When oil began to go over about $80 a barrel in 2007, we saw something very interesting happening. All the other prices for all the other goods and services started to go up.
Most of the people who follow the price of oil for a living say it's headed for $100 a barrel and quickly, as early as tomorrow.
When oil hit about $122, $123 a barrel in early 2008, we had food riots, you recall, in 22 countries. When oil hit $147 a barrel in July of 2008, all the prices across the supply chain for everything we buy went through the roof. And in that month, July 2008, purchasing power shut down all over the world.
It seems that everything is costing more.
Food costs expected to rise 4% this year.
Just 60 days after oil hit $147 a barrel, for the first time in history, the stock market fell a record 777 points in a single day.
The worst day on Wall Street. The market fell as if down a well.
We're down over 16%.
Because we're now down 43%.
The Dow traders are standing there watching in amazement, and I don't blame them.
And that was the economic earthquake. The collapse of the financial market 60 days later, that was the aftershock. And so every time we tried to regrow the global economy at the same rate we were growing before July 2008, oil prices will go up, all the other prices for everything we buy will go up, and it'll shut down over and over again.
Every time the price of oil goes up, a few months later, unemployment soars.
So we have this catch-22. When the oil price is low, that stimulates economic activity. That creates more demand for oil. As demand increases, price of oil goes up, and the next thing you know, we have a financial crisis, and we start the cycle again.
Every 4 or 5 years, we're in these cycles of growth, slowdown, growth, slowdown. That's the end game.
And with the most amount of fake righteous indignation, the fraudsters. It's a tell. This makes NGOs that are crazy. The $2 billion to Stacey Abrams' NGO that basically didn't exist, and $2 billion awarded from the federal government. She has why? And there are many cases like that. You know who complains the loudest, and with the most amount of fake righteous indignation, the fraudsters. It's a tell. This makes NGOs that are crazy, like the $2 billion Abrams NGO that basically didn't exist, and suddenly gets $2 billion awarded from the federal government. She has why? And there are many such cases like that.
Extraordinary story. So he was born. This is an extraordinary story. So he was born in a place called the Judengasse, which was a Jewish ghetto, basically. And it was the house that he lived in when he eventually had 13 children was only 14 feet wide. And he lived there with his very, very overpowering and dominant and an incredibly brilliant wife who was called Gutl. He was determined to get out of this ghetto. At nighttime, the ghetto was closed. You couldn't leave. The street was so narrow that no sunlight could penetrate. There was no plumbing. There was no sewage, there was nothing. So everything you can imagine happened in this street. And unsurprisingly, he wanted to get
a domineering Jewish woman?
And he started
what?
a small toy business, and that did reasonably well. But actually, and this is where it ties into legacy, his great strength was to send his 5 sons to the capitals of Europe at that time. And what they did, they set up, in effect, the first international banking system. So whereas everyone used to be in separate different countries or separate cities until these 5 boys communicated with each other, sometimes by pigeon, and they wrote to each other in Judendeutsche, which was a kind of Yiddish German vernacular. And that is why they were so successful. And this absolute belief in togetherness, you've got to stand together, you've got to work together, you've got to work across borders, you've got to work with rules. And by 1789, when the last one went, to 1815, so a very, very short period of time, it was said that no government or king would consider going to war without the Rothschilds supporting, because that was how incredibly influential and powerful they had become.
Influential and powerful.
This is an
domineering Jewish women. Who'd have thunk it? Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day.